Hello 1001, welcome back from spring break. We're starting a new unit this week. This is Unit 4. This unit's all focused on sort of the evolutionary ecology of human identity. So why do we do the things we do, and what is our evolutionary history? And the latter of that, the human evolutionary history of human species, is what we're going to be focusing on this week. So we'll be learning about sort of our origins in Africa and our relatives in the tree of life. So what are some other hominids? And then how do we use DNA to actually trace back and validate this theory that humans originated in Africa and then migrated from there? That's one aspect of the chapter this week, of the learning exercises this week. The other part is looking at how natural selection has influenced populations around the world over the course of human history. And so there we're going to be focusing on one particular trait that has shown to have an adaptive value, and that's skin color. And so that trait confers some advantage to tolerating higher UV levels. And so we see a gradation of skin color associated with a natural gradation in UV intensity. We'll be disabusing the idea that it has anything to do with sort of biological race or biological species. Those are sort of meaningless concepts in the context of what skin color actually is, which is just sort of a naturally varying trait that confers an adaptation. And an interesting fact that we recently found out is that the genes that underlie human skin color that are associated with the diversity of skin color we see today are actually older than the human species itself. These genes, which confer different, lightness and darkness in skin color, were around in our ancestors. So hominids, before human Homo sapiens ever existed, had as much variation in skin color as we see in modern human populations today. So the idea that it has anything to do with subspecies in a human sense is absurd, because it existed before the human species ever was around. Keep that in mind when you're looking at this stuff and looking at how the distribution of humans kind of influence the distribution of skin color we see today. So that's the content. Human evolutionary history, pretty standard week. Reading quiz, it's associated with chapter 2. You're going to have a essential questions with your group, and then you're starting a new lab this week, and this lab is going to be the last lab you do for this class, and it's going to carry you through the end of the semester. It's going to be a large-scale group project that you and your group are going to work on, and it's going to be focused on studying the diversity of the African Serengeti. So you're going to actually be using real data that was collected from this ongoing research project on the African Serengeti, where they have these cameras set up that are recording every time a species comes in front of that camera, and we use that data to not only track migration of species, but we use it to track populations of species. We use it to track species interactions. We use it to track how breeding patterns of species are sort of occurring over the cycle of a year. All sorts of things, really. It's kind of up to your imagination as to what kind of questions you can ask, because we're going to be looking at a data set that has dozens of species, thousands of records of when they were observed at these different cameras, and ultimately what the goal is of the lab is your group is going to come up with a question and test that question with this data. And so, actually, sorry, I should correct myself. You individually are going to come up with a question and test it with this data. You're going to start working together on a sort of practice question with your group, so that you'll learn together how to analyze this data, how to interpret this data as a group, and then you're going to go off and you're going to do your own project with the same data set, answer an entirely different question. Maybe you want to work on anteaters, or maybe you want to work on lions, or maybe you want to work on wildebeest. Whatever you want to work on, you can do it. It's in this data set. So this is really the introduction to that data set, what kind of questions you can ask, what kind of data is available. So definitely take your time reading through it and making sure that you get a handle on what's going on. Ask your group, ask me or Lindsay if you don't understand something. We're happy to help. All right, guys, good luck.